From Manhattan, this is the New York Executive Podcast. The voices that move markets, the conversations that shape the boardroom. Live from our studios in Midtown New York City, here is today's program.
Going to get a lot of insight today, and this is about a destination that many of us have been to, but sometimes it can be unnerving because there's so many different places in the Caribbean. So we're going to share with you everything you need to know, courtesy of Mr. Travel Agent. What's hot now? What's maybe things we don't want to miss, or things we should miss for good reason? And all inclusive, not all inclusive. How do you make those choices? You consult with a travel professional. Yes, they're back. They actually never went away, but they're more popular than ever. And so great to have him back with us. Derek Sheminitz is on the program. How are you today?
I'm good, Steve. How you doing this week?
Fantastic.
Beginning of the week, Monday, huh?
Yeah, it's off to a good start. Lots to
Yep.
talk about today when it comes to the Caribbean. I'm going to throw it to you. Give us a spot, a destination. Let's put the microscope on that and see what we can pull from that.
Okay. There's a lot of different islands that I really like in the Caribbean, so I could go all over the place. But some of my favorites would be St. Barts, Anguilla, Turks and Caicos, Antigua. So we can kind of run through a few islands here today, see how the time flows
Sure.
for the discussion.
Now, you mentioned Turks and Caicos. There was an announcement that came out that said we might want to avoid that island. Can you give us clarity on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's some petty theft and petty crime and stuff like that on certain islands. It's becoming more and more of a problem on the Turks. We're always getting flashes and warnings about the Turks over the last year or so, off and on. It more so would be Grand Turk. You know, Grand Turk is the commercial hub of the Turks and Caicos, and it's the major cruise port. It's like where all your large cruise ships go. Most of your cruise ships aren't going to port in Providenciales. They're going to do Grand Turk. And so it's become a little more petty theft, petty crime,
Mm.
pickpockets, being held up, going down some back street, and stuff or something like that. You just want to be extra careful. I still feel quite extremely safe on Providenciales. I mean, you don't want to go into the main town 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night and be at a restaurant and turn a corner and go down some back street or come out of some bar. You came from a nice five-star hotel, but you went into town for the night. I mean, I wouldn't do that. You got to play it safe. You got to be smart on these islands. But I would say the high-end resort zones of Providenciales are very, very safe. And also, there's some very beautiful private cays in the Turks and Caicos that have private resorts on them, or upscale resorts that would be fine as well. So I would be more than comfortable sending a client to Providenciales, putting them at a luxury hotel, and having them enjoy like a week vacation. I
Mm.
just tell them to be a little more, don't venture out of the tourist zone, and make sure if you're booking activities and excursions, it's with legit companies that are good, well reviewed to do things like that.
And same thing with Mexico. We get that, from time to time as well, those warnings, those alerts. But again, it's certain areas.
Right.
We talked about
Yeah.
Riviera Maya last time we got together, and that's perfectly fine. I was like, yeah, as always, play it safe.
Yeah, there's been some instances, what was it, many months back, where there were some roving gangs like on the beaches in Cancun or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, that's rare. That's not like a common occurrence. And, very quickly the government takes action and, puts a stop to those things that are happening in major tourist zones because they can't afford to lose the tourist business. Certain countries like Mexico and Caribbean, it's very important that the tourism revenue remains and is, and still is at a large scale and they don't want people to be scared of going to these destinations. So they take action. Their police force, their special team, their special security forces, will take action and clean that up right away. I see it's been a little more of a problem on the west side of Mexico than it's been on the east side of Mexico. Yeah.
How about the Virgin Islands? We got the U.S. and the British Virgin Islands.
hmm U.S. Virgin Islands are a great option for clients who don't have a passport and they want to go to the Caribbean, right? Because you can pick from St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, Puerto Rico's also in that same mix as well, without a passport. And so that lets a client family whose kids don't have passports yet
Hmm.
say, I want to go to the Caribbean, but we don't have passports. Well, you can get passports in like a month, 2 months. So I wouldn't be too concerned. But, it gives them the option of saying, well, we don't have to fork out $150, $250 per person for passports and we can go there. Resort wise, not as well repped as some people would think in the Virgin Islands. Um, Really, I only mainly sell like the Ritz-Carlton on St. Thomas. There is a Marriott, the Surf Club in the Marriott, which is decent, and that's closer to Charlotte Amelie, the main town on the island. So you can go down the hill and be in town a lot easier and have access to restaurants and shops like that. But the Ritz-Carlton on St. Thomas is beautiful, has its own two little small cove beaches. It's right down the road from Red Hook. Red Hook is where you get the ferry over to St. John. So you can enjoy easy day trips to St. John from there. You can
Hmm.
take ferries to the British Virgin Islands from there as well. So that's a great spot to be located. We're preferred partners with the Ritz-Carlton, so clients get the free breakfast, the early check-in, the late checkout, the room credit, the upgrade on arrival if available. That goes for all our preferred partners. Every
Hmm.
single luxury brand belongs to a preferred partner program and gives you those kind of status and amenities and VIP service. But that's a great option. St. John lacks resorts. I always tell clients rent a villa or is there a Westin or a W over there? But honestly, I don't like the resorts on St. John. There's only one or two of them, and I would rather have the clients stay on St. Thomas. Um,
It's been a long time. I want to ask you, St. John,
yes.
bringing back memories. So, like they're flowing. I remember taking the transport ferry, whatever it was, between islands. I remember going from St. John to another island. St. John, way back in the day, I stayed at a rock resort. That's what it was
Okay.
called. I'm
Rock
not,
Resort.
yeah, I'm not really sure what it is now, but it was very villa feeling where you stepped out to the sand and you're pretty much at the water level.
There used to be a very famous resort on St. John, but it's been so many years, I actually forget the name
Oh,
of
you
the
know what I'm getting? It's
resort.
got like just popped in my head, Keneal Bay. That
Neil
way,
Bay, that is it. That was a beautiful resort. That was one of the
yeah,
best. It was the best resort in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
yeah.
You couldn't go wrong there, but that doesn't exist anymore. Yeah,
Well,
they
what
closed.
happened to it? Do you know? like, I
I
don't
think
want.
they just went bankrupt, I think,
Wow.
is what it
Yeah,
was. I have to refresh my memory, but
yeah.
beautiful. The nice St. John has some beautiful little beaches, coves. One of the most famous underwater snorkeling trails in the Virgin Islands is Trunk Bay on St. John.
Yep.
So that's a really nice thing. I mean, rent your villa in St. Thomas or St. John, and then, take your day trips. I like St. John for a day trip because you have the national park with the Rockefeller, owned by the Rockefeller Foundation. You got hiking, you got coffee plantations, you got internal jungles in on the internal part of the island, and then you have these scattered across the outskirts. You have these little beaches all over the place that are just great to stop and visit and spend some time. So I like the island, but I don't like it for staying on the
Mm.
island. Yeah. hmm
Um, let's venture over. Well, before we go there, in the U.S.
Yes.
Virgin Islands, I've often heard that St. Croix was one of the, and I've never been there. I don't
hmm
think I have been. Been to the other ones. I've often heard that that's one you might want to avoid because it's very busy, sometimes a little more crime to be expected. Um,
Yeah, I mean, there's not. it's a historic island for some forts and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't send clients to St. Croix very often, and cruise ships really don't call on it anymore that often either.
Well,
I would say there's one resort, the Buccaneer, that's above average. I would say I wouldn't say it's luxury, but it's if you're going to go to St. Croix and you want a nice resort, you know, unless you're going to rent a villa, it's going to have to be the Buccaneer on that island. Yeah.
got it.
hmm
All right, let's go to the British Virgin Islands. What can you tell us?
British Virgin Islands. Are smaller. They're not as commercial. I like the beaches. You can escape to some quieter beaches or some more intimate resorts in the British Virgin Islands. Um, is it Rosewood? Yeah, I think it's Rosewood has a resort that I absolutely love on Virgin Gorda. That's a beautiful property on the British Virgin Islands. In the British Virgin Islands, you can just kind of like hop around them. I think they're great for villa rentals, mainly. And you can get from one to the other very easily as long as you have a US passport and take day trips between them. That's fine. hmm
I I stayed in the Virgin Islands, British Islands, years ago on Peter Island. Does that ring
Yep.
any bell?
Yes.
Very nice,
Beautiful.
very quiet, laid back.
Yeah. You don't have to take a boat to it, but it's ideal if you like charter a boat and go to it by boat or something like that for a day. But Peter Island's beautiful.
Yeah, that's how we got there. It was a boat. I forget
Yeah,
about
I was
all
going
this
to
stuff
say.
till we talk about it. How about another island? Where are we going?
St. Bart's. You want to talk about St. Bart's?
Sure.
I like St. Bart's. I think it's very international. So a lot of times what you have in the Caribbean is you go to these islands, you stay at the resort, you have resort food. Maybe there's some, you go if you leave the resort, there's Caribbean jerk food and Caribbean cuisine. You don't get international cuisine so much. That's changing a little bit. Turks and Caicos is getting a little more international with the dining scene. But St. Bart's is great for that because you can rent a beautiful villa, order some really nice resorts on St. Bart's. But you can go to St. Bart's, and a lot of times I'm not even eating at the resort, except maybe breakfast because it's included, right? So I'll breakfast at the resort. But my lunches, my dinners, I mean, I'm at beach clubs like Shalona or Nikki Beach. I'm having a good time. You have a vast menu, and then the island has, I like to call it like the French, it's like a slice of the Côte d'Azur in the Caribbean, right? It's a beautiful island. It's taking a piece of France and putting it in the Caribbean and having that international experience. You have really good French restaurants, Italian restaurants. I've done Japanese, I've done Chinese, I've done Thai. You can go there and you can have really nice dining. It's a little more pricier than other islands for sure. But you can really experience a lot on that island, and not feel that, you're having the same kind of food every single night. And the resorts are a little more boutique-ish. You have the famous Eden Rock,
Hmm.
right at Nikki Beach, which is absolutely beautiful. The Oak Turk collection represents the Eden Rock, and love that resort. But it's much more lively. If you go to the Eden Rock, you have the Nikki Beach Club down the way, and you have another beach club just a little further down the beach. And Eden Rock is very lively on its own, so you have to understand the atmosphere and the vibe. If you want something a little quieter, you can go to the Rosewood, which is on the other side of the island, which is beautiful, has its own little peninsula, and on each side of the peninsula is a private beach. Its rooms are built up on bluffs with beautiful views of either the bay or the Gulf. So that's a really nice option as well.
If I remember correctly, it's also St. Bart's draws a lot of celebrities too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen times where like New Year's, everybody's there, like Jeff Bezos is there and Leonardo DiCaprio's there. They all come on their yachts though, They all come on their yachts, and they don't stay at the resorts. They live in their yachts, and they take their little boats to the marina, and they go to the beach clubs, and they go to the restaurants and stuff, and they have their parties. But you're never going to see them at like a Rosewood or something like that
Yeah.
normally. But it's a beautiful island for that. And very famous. And the elite kind of want to keep St. Bart's that way, which is why the island authorities are not allowing large cruise ships on the island. You have to come over from St. Martin, on a ferry or on a charter. You hire a charter motor a yacht, and it will shoot across the water to St. Bart's, and you can spend a day at St. Bart's from there. The ferry can be a little rough from time to time, depending on the water conditions to get over
Mm.
there from St. Martin. And then there's little turboprop planes, commercial lines that fly from St. Martin over to St. Bart's and land at that very famous little airport that you think you're not going to land safely every time you land on St. Bart's. But it 95, 99% of the time, it's safe to land on St. Bart's anyways. So I like that island a lot
Mm.
because I like the luxury vibe it has. I like that you can have different experiences on the island, and you can enjoy really dining well on the island as well. Yeah.
You mentioned St. Martin.
Um,
Let's do that one.
St. Martin, I just had clients that stayed in Anguilla, which is just across the water from St. Martin. They stayed at the Four Seasons, which is beautiful. Love the Four Seasons. I actually like resorts better on Anguilla than I do St. Martin. St. Martin has two Belmond resorts. Sorry, one Belmond resort that is very nice, that I absolutely love. And there's a new property that the name eludes me right now. If I take 5 minutes, I can think about it. But it's more of a residential complex. It's not going to be like room rentals. It's going to be more like renting a residence, renting a villa, renting a private property. That looks beautiful. But over on Anguilla, you have the Cap Juluca, and you have the Rose, and you have the Four Seasons. Those are amazing. And I love the beaches on Anguilla. I think Anguilla's beaches are beautiful. And actually, Anguilla's coming up in the food. You hear about Anguilla a lot for
Mm.
gastronomy now in the Caribbean, which is surprising to me. But I had clients that went to the island, and they came back and they said that as well. They said that they had a really good time dining on the island. So that's something that I'm looking into and taking an interest in how that is progressing as well. And those islands are all very close to one another. You fly into St. Martin, and you can spend time at the Belmont, and then you can hop over to Anguilla, and you can spend time at the Four Seasons or the Cap Juluca. Um, and you can make like a multi-stay kind of trip out of it. And I also rent villas on both islands as well. I've rented very high-end villas on St. Martin. I actually had a client last year that spent like 2 weeks, 3 weeks on Lake St. Martin in a beautiful villa, and then went over to Anguilla for 1 week, and then we flew them home from Anguilla on that.
You never hear a lot about Anguilla.
You don't. And just last year, what was it? I think it's American, if I remember correctly, is now having service like nonstop from Philadelphia to Anguilla, and that's new. Because there was no way of getting to Anguilla before last year on a nonstop flight. You'd have to fly to St. Martin, and then you'd have to take a boat over, or you have to take a ferry over, or you have to take a turboprop plane over to get to Anguilla, which made it unpopular because it was like, okay, it's very hard to get to this island. I'm just going to book something on St. Martin, and deal with and enjoy the island of St. Martin, because that's very famous to stay in St. Martin as well. But now Anguilla's coming up. I'm hearing about it more and more.
Your pick, Barbados or Antigua, depending on how you pronounce it.
I got to go with Antigua because I think Antigua has the best beaches in the Caribbean.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
I've been there, but it's been a long time, so I'd have to really think about that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
I like it. I like Anguilla. I like Antigua a lot. I like the fact that like you can charter a boat and like right off the coast a little bit. There's some like private cays and in unpopulated cays. Nobody lives on them. Nobody, no resident, no villa. and you can just go there and snorkel and swim and have a barbecue and lay out in the sun, and there's absolutely no one on the island. I love that. Um, I think Anguilla is beautiful though. There's different areas. I know the Sandals has two has no, has the one resort on Anguilla. That's right. On Antigua. That's right. Um, I like the fact that the resorts on Antigua are much more boutique. You don't have like really large brands and chains on the island. Everything's like really a smaller resort off some private beach or something that's strictly for them. I mean, yes, all beaches on Antigua are public, and you can get to any beach just by driving to it. But you don't spend time driving to a beach that has a resort on it just because you want to go to that beach. That's the resort's beach mainly for the main purpose of that. Carlisle Bay comes to mind as a
Mm,
beautiful Caribbean resort, very traditional Caribbean feel, but yet modern. And it's like every room is like a two-story bungalow, and it's right on the beachfront. They don't have anything in the bush. They don't have anything in the trees or in the garden or anything like that. They're all beachfront. You can stay on an up top level bungalow or a bottom level bungalow. And if you're on the bottom level, you'll be able to walk right out to the beach. If you're on top, then you get the ocean view. Very nice.
wow. I want to go. You're drawing me in. If somebody is budget minded, where
hmm
where would you send them right now? Could be any island. Any island
Yeah,
that
I
somebody's looking a
mean,
little more
normally
on budget.
budget-minded clients are going to have go to islands that are heavier tourism, so you have more competition, right? Jamaica sticks out for
Sure.
that.
Mm,
A lot of resorts on Jamaica, so you can always have a very competitive, uh, you know, price range to find something in Jamaica. And you have different kind of brands. You can do all inclusive, you can do non-inclusive. It's a nice island for the mix. Like some islands, you can't mix it. You can't like you got to either do one or the other. You can't say, "Oh, I could do either of these on this island." No, you really can't. It's not worth them. Like you can forget about trying to do all inclusive in the US Virgin Islands. It's not happening. The British Virgin Islands, not happening. Very, you're not getting an all-inclusive on St. Barts. You're not getting an all-inclusive that's worth it on St. Martin or Anguilla. I mean, these islands are all, you're going to go to resorts that are not all-inclusive. But in Jamaica, you have that option of doing like a Hyatt Ziva or a Hyatt Zilara or an Iberostar or a Secrets. Secrets is adults only. Dreams is the non-adults only version of Secrets. So you have that option. To do that on Jamaica. I think Negril is the best place to stay in Jamaica because it's away from the Montego Bay tourism and cruise masses that come off of the cruise ships and everything. So stay away from Montego Bay if you can. Negril is the best for the beach on there. I know it's a 45 minute to 1 hour drive from Montego Bay when you fly in to get to Negril, but I still feel it's worth the journey to stay on Negril for Jamaica.
overall, last question here today, inclusive versus non-inclusive. What can you say?
If you're a high-end client, don't go all inclusive. I mean, it's just never what you expect it to be. Your best all-inclusives are like Secrets resorts and Sandals resorts, and you're gonna have decent a la carte dining, and they say it's gourmet, right? They say it's gourmet a la carte, but it's not gourmet a la carte. You're not going to get the same kind of experience that you do at a Ritz-Carlton, a Four Seasons or something. You're just not. The chef is brought in. The chef is, an expert, and the restaurants are top of the line cuisine. And you also, when you go to a non-inclusive, everybody is servicing you because everybody, you're going to leave a gratuity for every bartender, every the waiter service, the
Mm,
the maid service. Everything is there to service you, and they want the concierge. They all want to be helped you. What I find, unless you go to a really, really top of the line all inclusive, is that sometimes it lacks. You know, and I don't like saying that, but it's true because once an all-inclusive resort gets you number one, you always are going to prepay for an all-inclusive resort. Like you don't, sometimes you don't prepay for a 5-star, right? You pay when you get there. So they're gonna want you to come, they're gonna want you to have a good time. They're going because you're not paying that bill until you check out. It's just guaranteed to your credit card. And they want to make sure you're going to have a good time and you're not going to have any complaints before you leave, right? And all inclusive, you prepay your entire vacation in advance. You prepay that Iberostar, you prepay that stay. And so the resort has you. You paid your $3,000, $4,000 for 1 week, and the resort has you as a guest for that week. And so sometimes you see the bartenders, the pool service, the beach service, it lacks. They sometimes don't care so much. I don't like saying that, but it's true. I've had clients come back and say it's not the same, and the food is not up to what I expected, and so, but I would always say you would go non-inclusive if it's right for the client. I understand a family wants to go to a Hard Rock or a Dreams or something like that, it's great for families. They got swimming pools and they got water slides and water parks and kids clubs and babysitting services and all that. That's great. And I have no objections to that, but it's better to go non-inclusive. Yeah.
I hear you. And what you're saying, it totally makes sense, because I don't mean to say this in a bad way, but when you prepay, they got
so
you.
True. I've gone to the top of the line, adults only, all-inclusive Secrets. They're pretty much touted as the best adults only. Me and my wife have went to numerous Secrets resorts, and that's what we did earlier on in my career. Is okay, let's go to Punta Cana, let's go to a Secrets, let's go to Riviera Maya, let's go to a Secrets. The beach was great. Maroma in Riviera Maya is famous, but then we started going to Four Seasons, Ritz-Carltons, and it's like, oh geez. It's like the dining service, the menu, the labels for the alcohol and the concierge in the pool and getting you a cabana. And you go to an all-inclusive, like, sorry, no, cabanas are completely booked, all gone.
Yeah.
You can't get a cabana for your whole week. You tell a Four Seasons concierge, I would like a cabana tomorrow. Okay, yeah, it's $200, but here, your cabana's done, so.
$200, that's worth it. Good deal. Wow.
Depends. Yeah.
Great insight today. Best way to find you, somebody's looking to book, even just ask some questions like we're doing today. What's the best way?
Just hop onto my website, mrtravelagent.net. My email address is there, my WhatsApp is there, my phone number, everything is in the contact section, and I'm right there. I'm always available to connect to, and feel free to reach out.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. I would love the opportunity to work with anybody who would like to work with me.
And anybody that has questions as well, you can reach out here, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. And when we meet again, you'll be fresh back from a getaway to China, right?
Yes, 2.5 weeks going through China. I look forward to coming back and discussing all the experiences that I had, which are going to be very different, going to a lot of different places, and excited to talk about that as
Looking
well.
forward.
Because everybody says China is amazing. China is a wonder of the world, major modern metropolis of cities and ancient culture. So I like that blend. That blend really is very interesting to me, and I love Asian ancient cultures for Asia. So I'm very excited to see the country.
Looking forward. Have a great trip.
All right.
And we will talk soon, okay?
All right, we'll talk in a couple of weeks. I won't see you next week, but we'll talk in 3 weeks, I think. Okay.
You got it. All right, Derek. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the New York Executive Podcast, broadcasting from Manhattan to 30,000 channels nationwide. To learn more or to bring your brand to our audience, visit nyexecpod.com. We'll see you next time.